If you have a situation where you have the potential to go very far in life, there by definition also has to be the potential to fall very low. Welcome back to another episode of the Nomad's Notebook podcast. My name is Joe Maxwell, and today this is a very groundbreaking episode. This is my first episode that I'm doing totally unscripted. There's no teleprompter. I only wrote a short outline beforehand, but I'm not even looking at that right now. So hopefully this will be a little more authentic, a little more genuine. How I plan to do these episodes is I'm going to take some thoughts that I've had from the past previous weeks, just thoughts, observations, and experiences. And hopefully you can find some wisdom from those things and then apply it to your own life. If you do find anything I say interesting, please let me know in the comments or DM me, whatever you want to do. I read everything I get, and it would really mean a lot for me to hear from you. So today I want to talk about a couple different topics. They're all going to be connected. It might not seem that way, but I will connect them in the end, so just bear with me. The first topic is the idea of nostalgia. Now, I spent some time with my family over the Christmas holidays. We're into January now. It was really good. It was about 10 days. I get 2 weeks off from work, so I spent the majority of that with my parents and my siblings up on a very remote part of northern Ontario. Something I've noticed as I've gotten older is it seems that the importance of family continues to grow the older that you actually get, right? Like when I think back to when I first moved out of the house, started college, 18, 19 years old, I just couldn't wait to get out of the house and get away from my parents, right? And I didn't really look forward to going home because I just so enjoyed this new freedom I had of being an adult out in the world and being able to make my own decisions. But as I got older, progressed through college, and one particular event in particular, actually after college, my first year after I'd graduated, I was working in Texas at that time. That experience had a big impact on me. So I was in Texas. Again, my parents are in northern Ontario, so pretty far away, a lot of distance in between us. And because of an issue with my work visa and also the COVID restrictions, all that nonsense was going on then, I couldn't actually travel home to see them for Christmas. Now, I think this was 2 years ago now, and I remember that experience very profoundly, and I expect to remember it for the rest of my life because it just had such an impact on me. I can remember lying on my couch. I was so lonely, so depressed, and so sad on Christmas Day, just bawling my eyes out because I was so lonely and I so wanted to be with my family. And I think then, for the first time in my life, I realized how finite time is and how limited the time we get with our family actually is, right? When I was finally in a situation where I couldn't get home, I couldn't spend time with them. So ever since then, I've tried my very best to prioritize time with family. And I've noticed it's something that, even apart from that experience in Texas, it's just something that gets more important as you get older. Reach out to your loved ones, reach out to your parents, tell them that you love them, and tell them that you care for them, because we honestly don't know how much longer people are going to be here for. So after the holidays, I think it was on the 26th or the 27th, all my siblings were home and my nieces and nephews. There's 6 of them in total, which is a pretty rare thing, right? Because we're all spread out over different parts of the province right now. So it's only really a couple times a year that we all get home at the same time. So one of these evenings, we're all sitting on the couch and we decided it'd be fun to watch some home videos from probably, honestly, 20 years ago. They were old. I was 5 or 6 years old at that time. It was a great experience. I'm glad we did it. There was lots of laughter and joy and reminiscing of old memories that happened amongst our family. But for me, at least, it wasn't just joy and happiness that I was feeling. There was something else there, just a little sting of sadness. And it got me thinking of this concept of nostalgia. I think what I was feeling in that moment was nostalgia. It prompted me to dig deeper into that concept and do some searching as to what nostalgia exactly is. If you look at the old Greek word, it translates directly to the pain from an old wound, which I think summarizes the feeling very well. Another key component to it, I believe, is this intense yearning to get back to something in the past, but with the inability to do so, right? And that's why I think childhood is one of the things that brings on nostalgia probably more than anything else, because as humans, we just don't have the power to turn back time. We can't do that. We can't get back to our childhood. And there may be things, if we had a good upbringing, we had good parents, we can look back at that time very fondly, but we can't get back there. And that's when this pain of nostalgia comes in. What should we do with nostalgia? Well, I think the first thing to realize is it's not a bad thing. You know, we're maybe conditioned lately with society to think that anything that isn't joy and happiness is inherently a bad thing. But I actually look at nostalgia as a very good thing, but it's also sad and it can hurt a lot. But it's good because it's an indication that we've lived a good life. If we look back at a past experience with nostalgia, that means that was a worthwhile, fulfilling experience. So what we can learn from it is we should try to turn the present moment into a nostalgic moment down the road, right? And that's not really something you can do consciously, right? Like if you have a good memory, you're probably not going to think at the time, oh, I'm going to turn this into something great that I'm going to look back on. No, it just happens naturally, right? And then you look back on it months or years later and you realized, wow, that was a really great experience. So the home videos got me thinking about the adult versus the childhood experience of life. It made me think of how I approached life when I was a child. And it was such a carefree approach to life. When we're children, our parents absorb the weight of existence for us. They pay our bills, they work a job, they feed us. We don't really have any real responsibilities other than going to school and doing what our parents tell us. And while that can be a very limiting experience, it also can be very comforting too, because we don't have any real consequences in life. But as we get older, say early teenage years, we start to hold on to this weight of existence and these adult problems. Is life better as a child? It seems a lot simpler. Maybe it's a lot more joyful, but is it better? And I did a lot of thinking about that, and I don't think it is. I think when you're a kid, it's almost like you're living life on pretend mode, right? You don't really have a lot of consequences in life, but you don't have a lot of freedom either. You don't have the freedom to experience love, sex, to travel to Europe on a solo trip and just really embrace life, right? You can't do that as a child. So there's not nearly the same consequences, but there's also not the same potential as well. Childhood versus adult life experience. It made me think of a socialist versus a capitalist society. And given my life experience, I think I can speak on this with some authority. I grew up in Canada, which by most standards is going to be a moderately socialist country, right? By most metrics. That's where I grew up. That's where I live now. But I also spent 6 years in the United States of America. I went to school there. I've talked about that before. And I also worked in Texas. Two very different societies. In a socialist country, there's going to be certain safety nets in place that are going to protect people. They're going to prevent people from hitting rock bottom, even if they make poor decisions or they have an abusive upbringing or whatever sets them on a bad path. There's going to be welfare programs and unemployment insurance, national health insurance coverage that is going to prevent people from hitting absolute rock bottom. Now, on the flip side, in a socialist country, there's also going to be tax codes in place that need to be in place in order to allow those programs to run. The tax code is going to be set up in such a way that people won't really be able to get astronomically wealthy either. Some people would say that's a good or bad thing. I'm not going to comment on that, but I'm just laying things out as I see them. So that's a socialist country. You can't fall too far, but you also can't go up too high either. Now, in a capitalist society, we'll take the United States of America as an example, you can fall awfully far in that kind of a country. You can get into all types of trouble. That's why there's so many homeless people in the United States versus other developed countries. It's because they just don't have the safety nets in place in order to take care of these people, right? So they're left to live out on the streets. And sometimes they get into a lot of trouble. Even someone who's not homeless, but they don't have a job that provides them great medical insurance and they go and break their leg or they get really sick, they can easily find themselves in hundreds of thousands of dollars of medical debt. And they're on the hook for that, right? There's no government to to bail them out. An individual person can get into a lot of trouble in a capitalist society, but you can also rise awfully high if you're hardworking, you're consistent, you're smart, you're lucky. Like, I'm not going to make the claim that success in a capitalistic society has everything to do with what you do, right? There are plenty of external factors there as well, right? You have to be smart and you have to be lucky, but you also have to be hardworking. So there are things that you can control, and there are also things that you can't control that allow you to rise to success. Now, because there aren't these structures in place to protect the lower classes of society, there is a whole upper echelon of society that can support the economic growth that can allow people to get very wealthy and very successful, right? So that's the flip side. And I think this is really a universal rule, right? That if you have a situation where you have the potential to go very far in life, there by definition also has to be the potential to fall very low. Then on the flip side, if you're going to play things safe, you might have a pretty safe, reasonable existence, but you're also never going to become astronomically successful either, right? It's just one of those give and take laws of the universe. Anyway, I'm about ready to wrap this thing up today. Hopefully I didn't repeat myself too much. I know it maybe wasn't as tight as some of the other episodes, but I think things are going to be more authentic this way in the long run. So I expect to get a lot better with these. So please bear with me, and I will see you guys next week. Thank you so much for listening.